Hi guys, welcome to today's video. Today is going to be a seasons ranking, which we haven't done for quite some time on this channel. And today's TV show that we're going to be ranking is Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is a TV show which is based within the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It follows the missions and adventures of, well, the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. led by Philip Coulson, who is established in the Avengers movie. The 7th and final season finished the other day, and I did my season 7 review on it yesterday, so if you'd like to see an in-depth spoiler-free review of that, I'll leave a thing up in the corner right here. In terms of my rankings, I tend to include spoilers, so here is your spoiler warning. Coming in at number 8, we have Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Slingshot. Now, I know it's not really included with the 7 main seasons of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but I thought I'd include it just for a bit of fun. If you don't know, this is a mini-series that was released on YouTube, I believe. It features 6 episodes, which are only 5 minutes long, so not much content at all. It was always going to end up being this low down. It focuses on the character Yo-Yo, has some interesting ties to the MCU, where Yo-Yo does not want to sign the Sokovia Accords. And it does something that we haven't seen too much in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., where it follows just one character for the whole episode. Normally we have characters doing different things that it cuts to now and then, but in this it's all followed from Yo-Yo's point of view. So it was just something different to see. But in truth, this really doesn't add too much. It's a bit unnecessary in my opinion, as it is 6 5-minute episodes. Add it all together and you could have just under the duration of a full episode, and in truth, if it was a full episode, it would have just been a mediocre one, so it's a bit odd that they did this, and it doesn't change how I view Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Now we are on to the actual proper seasons, and in number 7 we have Season 2, where Season 1 played it relatively safe, like most first seasons do when they're intending to branch off into separate seasons. Season 2 takes this show immediately to new heights, showing us this whole different world in Afterlife. It dives into more bizarre aspects known to the comics, like for example the Inhumans. It's not afraid to show a lot of them, and yeah, it's not really worrying about trying to keep this realistic feel. It's just going for it fully now. It introduces us to some important new characters who are all very likable and play a huge part for this show right up until Season 7, which just came out. A few to mention is Hunter, Bobby, and Sky's parents, who's now known as Daisy in this season, as she finds out her real birth name. Unlike the first season, all these episodes are connected from start to finish, and if you take one of them out of this season, it would leave some holes in the plot, so they're all very necessary, but because of that, and they're trying to fill up, I believe it's 22 episodes, at some points it can drag and it gets a bit slow, especially when they are settled in Afterlife. And for me, that's where this one comes lower down on the list, just because it is very slow at times, and sometimes you just want to power through to the end without enjoying it as much. But a big improvement from this season is the CGI. It's a lot better from Season 1. It was probably because they had a bigger budget to splash after Season 1's success. And as mentioned thoroughly in that one, coming in at number 6, we have Season 1. Now, in many shows' first season, they normally tend to go for a smaller plot, but they aim to execute it very well, and this is what this season does, which is important for how this show plays out in the future. Of course, the stakes in this aren't anywhere near as high as they are later on in the show, but it's still a very fun season to watch and a great introduction to this show, as it only gets pretty much better from here. Where the seasons after this differ from the first season is this season is a bit like X-Files, where it spends majority of its episodes just singular missions which don't add anything to how the finale plays out, and I think that is just so we can get to know these characters, get to know what kind of missions they're on and what the stakes are like. Then there is some connecting episodes towards the end which have some big twists which I didn't expect, but I can appreciate these individual episodes as individual missions, but I'm glad they didn't follow it in future seasons. I'm just glad they did it so we got to know them, and it included some great cameos from MCU actors and characters. The only real negative is that the episodes aren't as interesting as later ones that come, because they haven't completely figured out the tone and what their goal is. And also on top of that, the CGI isn't too great, most notably for when they're aboard the bus, which is actually a plane. Taking us into the top 5, I now have Season 6 coming in at 5th place. You know, it gave us a cool look at other life in space. I liked the relationship between Enoch and Fitz. I liked how they became each other's best friends. Just we get to see Enoch more with his personality shining, even though he is a Chronicom. I believe the CGI in this is some of the best that we have seen in this entire series. Everything looks pretty realistic. There's nothing which makes you cringe when you see it. But to be honest, I just found this season quite odd. You know, there's huge stakes at the end of season 5, or just throughout the whole season. And this one kind of feels like it belongs amongst the earlier seasons with how big the stakes are. And in truth, I don't feel as much energy from it. Partially because I wasn't a big fan of the odds and coincidence of their way of bringing back Coulson in this alien form called Sarge. You know, they've killed off the character. I understand what they do in season 7 to have him there, but for this, it just felt a bit forced. It kind of brought it down. Even though I love Clark Gregg, I love Coulson. I know this isn't Coulson, but just having them there felt a bit forced and brought it down a bit for me. And also, this is the point where it gets confusing. You know, I think this show is much better when it's not trying to put in an MCU reference everywhere, but why has no one reacted to the events of the snap from Infinity War? Like, no one has said anything about it. There's been no acknowledgement of it. It doesn't even look like it's happened there, and that's where things get a bit weird. In number 4, we have the newly released Season 7. So if you want a more in-depth review on it, go watch my previous video. It'll also be up in the corner here. I said in there, I just love time travel things, and they found a way to make it work within this show with everything they've gone for. It doesn't change up the tone too much, only for when they're in that certain year, whether that's because of the clothes, the area, dialogue, or all the references, which I'm also including as the year-themed title cards used in the intro of each episode. Deke I wasn't a huge fan of in previous seasons, but in this he becomes one of my favorite characters. He becomes more useful, and I think that was purposely done by Marvel. Also get to see Enoch. I like him even more. I think Joel Stoffer does a great performance as Enoch, quite underrated by the way he can just look so robotic, whether that's with his expressions, his voice, or just his movement in general. And you really felt him feel as a human emotionally, especially with his final words when he sadly passes away. This season just has some real emotional moments, as they do know it's their final season, so they've planned to put these emotional things in. And the characters have some of the best chemistry that this whole series has seen. They also had some cool little Easter eggs that they included from the MCU, whether they mentioned Bruce Banner, Peggy Carter, or from the Agent Carter series they dragged in Agent Sousa, who I thought was just going to be there for an episode but got dragged along for the whole adventure and is there to the end, where we see the season and show conclude with all our other characters. When it came to the villains, Sybil and Nathaniel Malik were very underwhelming, especially for the big bad of the final season of this show. That's normally when they face their biggest villain yet, but no, and this was very underwhelming. The way they beat them was super easy, not what a finale of a series deserves. So they faced much harder villains, so I just found these ones a bit underwhelming and disappointing. And although everyone got their happy ending who survived, or all things got tied together, I wasn't too satisfied with the ending. It didn't provoke too much emotion from me like previous finales have. I mean, it's just my feeling. It didn't really do anything wrong, but I don't know, maybe because I'm just expecting big sacrifice at the end for the emotional stakes. Now into the top 3. In 3rd place we have Season 5, probably the darkest season of this whole series, and I absolutely loved it. I think it changed age rating at this point, because some of the kills were very gory and more graphic than what we had seen in previous seasons. I absolutely loved Fitz in this season. We'd seen him and Gemma constantly just behind the desk working out all the sciencey stuff, but Fitz was in the field the whole time here, and he seemed so cool at it. It cemented his place as my favorite character in this whole show. That just shows how far he has come from, you know, just the nerdy guy who didn't really want to be involved with the action too much, to going full ahead with the action and absolutely rocking at it. You know, as they're trying to put as much content into these seasons as possible, they have like one half of the season with this certain story, and then second half is a bit unrelated to it. And for me, as much as I like the 2 stories that were in this season, there was too much in one season for me. Like, you get to the end, and with all the things with Talbot and the gravitonium that happened, you think back that they were trying to save the future of mankind and Earth. It's such a huge amount of content to take in, and it's all high stakes, so it's not like smaller adventures, and then bam, it was all tense the whole time. The stakes were huge, so it was just a lot to process, especially for one season. And where I said I didn't have as much emotion provoked with the series finale in season 7, this finale provoked the most emotion for me in the whole series, probably because the super sad ending. But anyways, despite Fitz and Coulson dying, the season ended in a way which made me feel satisfied. You know, it was just an emotional farewell, and I was on board with it. Could have been a good ending for the whole show. But then you actually have to think about all the loose ends with all the time travel, different realities, how Fitz is technically still out there, a different Fitz, so you understand why they carried on. But in terms of emotion, this was a good place to stop for me. And not to mention, it also had a nice tie-in with the MCU with Thanos at the end, but that's where it also gets confusing about if they are actually in the MCU. Coming in second place, we have season 3. This was a big transition from season 2, and with the tone and the stakes, and I think it's partially because they figured out what their tone is. They had a great layout of tension. It's done so well to constantly keep you engaged, which I found this whole season and easy to binge. It goes for that darker tone that I mentioned before, and it works really well with all the characters or their powers, just the violence in general. It has so many characters, but it utilizes them all very well, so they all have their moments, all are included in equal amount of time. And I mentioned this earlier on, but for up until now, Fitz and Simmons were stuck behind the desk, but in this they get to experience a bit in the field, and I really enjoyed it, and they showed that they can hold their own in a fight. And just those two in general, I just love their relationship at the end. This is the season where they officially get together. And the return of Ward, although he does die, he comes back to life as Hive, who is a very intimidating villain because he looks very hard to kill, as well as that he's in the body of this character Grant Ward, who many people at S.H.I.E.L.D. don't like and have bad memories of him, so it just made it a bit that more powerful. But overall, a great season of this show. Coming in at number 1, we have season 4. From the minute I finished season 4, or even when I was watching it, I knew season 4 was my favorite out of the bunch. It just becomes an even more ambitious season than the previous one, which I still loved as well. And this season we get to see by far the best on-screen adaptation of Ghost Rider. I'd really be down to see Gabriel Luna portray Ghost Rider in the MCU, whether that's in a movie or like Doctor Strange or something, or in one of the Disney Plus TV shows. Maybe start a petition or someone. And I just love the amount of twists and turns in this whole season. You know, we had whatever Dr. Radcliffe was up to, we had Ada, we had the Darkhold, Mace's powers being fake, and we had May's replacement. And then one of the coolest of the whole show was seeing Coulson and Mac become the Ghost Rider temporarily. But the second half of the season is what made me love this one so much, with the framework. It showed us a what if scenario of what every Marvel fan has wanted to see. What if Hydra defeated S.H.I.E.L.D. and took over the world? I just loved how much attention to detail there was. You know, we got to see what all the characters' lives would be like. And I know it wasn't real, it was in a virtual world and he's dead, but we kind of got that long-awaited arc for Grant Ward, which you always wanted. You know, we've seen him, he started off nice, he broke our hearts by being a double agent, and then he had his chance of redemption, but then he ruined it again. But this, he got his redemption. Even if it wasn't real, we'll still take it. And it just topped off truly great seasons. And I'm going to go over my ratings for each of the seasons, including the Slingshot season. Coming in last place, in 8th place, we had Slingshot, which I give a 6 out of 10. Coming in at 7th place, we had Season 2, which I gave a 7 out of 10. Coming in at 6th place, we have Season 1, which I gave a 7 out of 10. Coming in at 5th place, we have Season 6, which I also gave a 7 out of 10. Coming in at 4th place, we have the newly released and final season, Season 7, which, as you know, if you saw my review, I gave an 8 out of 10. Coming in at 3rd place, we have Season 5, which I gave an 8 out of 10. Coming in 2nd place, we have Season 3, which I gave an 8 out of 10. And coming in at 1st place, Season 4, once again, I gave an 8 out of 10. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed my ranking of the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. seasons. Please let me know in the comments what your ranking would be. You don't have to include Slingshot like I did. I just did it for a bit of fun because I had seen it. I'd really appreciate if you would like and subscribe, as I'm trying to push out a lot of content this month, and just your support keeps me motivated and enjoying making my content. But yeah, anyways, thank you for watching. I really hope you enjoyed, and I hope to see you in my next video.